What if the real threat to our happiness isn't actually failure, but instead it's success within a broken system? For most of us, we've grown up in a society that has conditioned us to believe that the harder you work, the more money you'll make. And while that can be true in a practical sense, it's really not efficient when we're looking from the perspective of work-life balance and harmony in our life and not being distracted so that we can focus on the things that matter. We see this with some of our older generations who, on their deathbeds, have said that they wish they had taken more time to take in those meaningful moments, to be more present, and not choosing their career over people they love. Unfortunately, with the way that our business culture exists today, it's highly in existence based on how much productivity you have, how much output you have, at the expense of your personal life. And this isn't the case for everybody. When I was in my early 20s, I had so much freedom and time. I had very little obligation. I was active duty in our military service here. And that really didn't have a shift for me until I became a parent and I got married and my obligations started to change. And that's when I realized that the career I had built for myself up until that point just didn't sustain itself the right way when I started a family. But that's not something that I really thought about before starting a family. And we get into one of those situations where you just don't know what to ask if you don't know. You don't know what to plan for if you don't know, right? So I'm coming in my early 30s now, really talking and sharing about raw experiences in my 20s that have led me to moments of burnout in my career and how we can prevent that. I also have my master's in IO psychology, so I do a lot of science-based backing and understanding to really get to the root of what is going on here in our society. Just to put it in perspective, if we're used to operating and having a certain amount of output at the 40 hours plus per week, and we're used to that kind of revenue, the minute we scale back to have some kind of work-life balance, if you haven't worked within a business model that can support that and continue to scale on its own, or you're hiring team members, for example, then you're looking at a reduction in revenue because of a reduction in output. And so we've gotten in this type of business culture where the amount of money you make is directly attributed to how hard you work and how much output you give. But what we're seeing right now with the online space especially is that you really don't have to operate that way anymore. That is why we're seeing such a mass exodus, the mass resignation of our generations now leaving the workforce and either starting their own businesses or they're working remote where they don't have to commute and they can just have a really more relaxed lifestyle. And I'm an advocate for that. I'm an advocate for maybe changing or shifting the way that we do business, because I don't believe that business is more important at this or for the sake of or at the cost of our society. The reason I say that is, yes, I know our business culture is what brings our revenue in, but if we just think really quickly about other cultures before us, even in our ancient civilizations, there was a work culture that was directly attributed to giving back to the community and being able to support each other in that way. And now that we've shifted our focus to national or global support and services and products, we've really gotten away from just really nurturing our own community, our own little villages in our cities and our neighborhoods, and now our focus is elsewhere. So again, having a business culture, although it increases revenue, has really distracted and taken us away from purely and simply our neighbors and being able to have community with one another and be present. Now, we do live in a productivity society, which for us in the Western culture is pretty safe. We're able to focus more on being productive instead of having to survive in a space where our lives are threatened any moment. But it's also suffocating, and it can restrict us from being able to see a bigger picture or dream bigger. And I do believe that having access to the online world and global cultures has really helped kind of aid that a little bit, where we find inspiration for things we can do and places we can go. So now we'll see that there's a lot of our younger generations, including myself, who don't actually live where they were raised or where they grew up, because we have this opportunity to be anywhere that we really want to be. you truly get to choose your life, which is just a phenomenal thing, a phenomenal experience to have in this lifetime. Now, the reality of burnout is that there's really no one thing that will cause it. It is a combination of several factors, and it also depends on where you are mentally, what your capacity is at any given time. Especially as a woman, I can speak to our cycles and our hormone cycles. If you have a standard hormone cycle for yourself, then your capacity will fluctuate even throughout the month. So it's really important to realize that if you are operating at this 40 plus hour per week and you don't have kids yet, or maybe you plan on not having kids, or you're not married, then I do think that that could be widely sustainable, as long as you keep in mind that you are doing things that align with you and that really keep your interest outside of work as well. Now, if you are transitioning and you do plan on having, that's correct. I don't know why my English is being so funny today. You do plan on having a family at some point, then I would take into consideration what that might look for you. Just the ability to be a mom, for example. When I have my kids in their schools, my phone is still on. I just got a message a few minutes ago from my daughter's teacher because my daughter is having a little bit of a tough day today. She's not really getting her work done like she should be. And so there's this constant pull for our attention as moms. There's this constant nagging on our brain for other responsibilities and other obligations that we have. That is something I completely underestimated before I had children. So I just naively thought that the way I was hustling before, I was going to be able to hustle, and I did for a few years after I had my kids. I opened a brick and mortar business. I went bankrupt in that business. Like, it was an experience, but what I ultimately realized was that I could not sustain that level of hustle without compromising the type of parent I wanted to be. And so ultimately this video is less of a talking head, I'm the expert, blah, blah, blah video, and more just to open the conversation and relate to you, because I understand. I've had burnout more than once in my life, and I always internalized it. I thought it was me. I thought I was the problem. But then it didn't really add up or make sense to me because I've always been such a high achiever. I've always reached these phenomenal goals that I always believed I could reach, and I've just had this insane amount of maybe success delusion where I just know I can do it. So when I started to reach these periods of burnout, I was like, what's the deal? Like, what's wrong with me? Why do I keep like pivoting away or just getting tired or just not really loving what I do once I start doing it? And if you've ever been in a place where you feel like, oh, if I just get to this position, or if I just do that, or if I just make this amount of money, I'll be so fulfilled and happy. And I'll tell you, every single time I hit those milestones, I was happy for like a month. And then I sat there and I was like, this isn't really it for me. And so after a pattern of this, a cycle of this, I finally was like, what's the deal here? Like, what is really going on? And so I started pursuing more of my own spiritual path. I have my MS in IO psychology that is this close to being finished. I literally have 2 classes left and I'm so stoked, y'all. But for me, I just internalized it, and the minute I could start to look inward and just be like, what's not aligning here, that's when I had these spiritual downloads that, oh, okay, what I was feeling, the exhaustion, the burnout, the anxiety, the depression, the anger sometimes, was really all just symptoms of a misalignment in my lifestyle and living in a way that really didn't feel authentic or true to me. And unfortunately, that is what ended up forcing me and pushing me away from the marketing industry. Now, I love what I do with marketing. I love being able to teach marketing. I love being able to help our small businesses with marketing. I do have a media company with an emphasis on marketing for that reason, but I left the industry of marketing. I stopped pursuing contracts with agencies. I stopped pursuing these higher roles or these senior level roles in marketing because they were all the same to me. And I just started to realize this pattern of misalignment and started to address that. And that is where I started to really unlock and started to feel empowered to pursue what I want to do. and know that I could make a living doing it because I have this background in marketing. So it was just a really insane experience, and I love being able to share my experience. That is all this video is me just getting really real, unscripted, and sharing my experience with you, because I do believe that you can relate. If you're watching this video, you probably have felt this at some point, especially if you have a family. And I'm here to tell you that it's normal. If you're feeling any of these feelings of frustration or anxiety or stress, probably you have a misalignment somewhere to your authentic self in your life, and it is completely fixable. If you love content like this, please stick around, engage with me, comment, send me a message, say hello. I really enjoy getting these messages and the comments, even though there's so few right now, because I'm available to do that, and I want to really make this a community on humanizing business. So if you align with that, stick around. I have so many playlists, so you can kind of choose what fits your boat and leave the rest, and I will see you on the next video.